Hi everybody, this is Lainey Liberty, and I'm making this short video for you, parents of teens. So I'm reaching out today to offer just a little bit of insight and support for parents who have teens at home and may be struggling. We know in the best of times, it's not easy to be an adolescent or a teenager. And right now, we're in challenging times. We're faced with a time of change, and that adds or can add stressors to the overall state of being right now for anybody. Um, but today I'm going to focus on you supporting your teens, and what I'm going to do is at the end of this video, I'm going to share a little bit about development, and then at the end of this video, I'm going to offer 5 suggestions with tools that you can use to start supporting your teen today. So be sure to watch to the end of this video. So like I said, in the best of times, it's not easy being an adolescent. Teenagers are going through rapid changes. And it's really a time in a teen's life that is going to lay down the foundation for the rest of their lives. So this part of a human's development, the adolescent stage, is so incredibly important. Teens are going through a lot. Not only is there puberty, but there are biological changes that are happening, there are hormonal changes, and there are brain changes. I'm going to talk a little bit about the brain changes to give you kind of a brief overview, but I'm also going to, in the comments of this video, put some quick resources for you to get a better overview of what's going on from a brain perspective as your adolescent grows into adulthood. So brain research indicates that a child is born with double the amount of neurons that we end up having as an adult. So remember that, because that's really important. So from 0 until a child reaches adolescence, the brain's job is to learn, to take in the world, to grow, to learn and make as much sense of me, self, and the world around. During this time of development, before we hit adolescence, the brain's job is really to be a generalist, to really look at the world around us and look at sense of self and add as much information as possible. And as a child moves into adolescence, a really important task starts to happen. And this continues until they're about 25 years old, until our growth actually stops and we are in adulthood. There is a small caveat to that, and anybody who's dove deep into learning about the brain, we know that there is plasticity in the brain and you have the ability to change and grow throughout your life. However, what happens during the adolescent period is the brain starts pruning about half of the cells or the neurons that we were born with. So literally, an adolescent loses half of their mind, which explains quite a lot. So how does the brain make a decision as to what cells or neurons to start pruning? Well, like I said, during the first years before a child hits adolescence, the brain is a generalized learner. During adolescence, the brain starts specializing. In essence, whatever an adolescent or a teenager is passionate about, those neurons remain throughout the lifetime of the person. In fact, whatever it is that they're focusing on now as an adolescent is really important. In other words, in terms of brain and cells and neurons, use it or lose it comes into play here. So remember that the things that the teens are focusing on now during this period will likely be with them throughout their entire adult life. As an adolescent, in addition to their interests and passions, they start making deeper connections to the outer world. So, for example, if something is of interest to them, the brain will start providing deeper meaning and stimulating different parts of the brain and adding deeper connections and understanding. And this is a time where complex processing or learning happens. And what that means is during adolescence, a teenager is figuring out how they fit into the world. The thing that's really difficult right now is the world is in a state of change. It didn't look like it looked like when you and I were teenagers. It didn't look like what it looked like even 5 years ago. As of right now, the world is a very different place, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And if you think about a child who is just starting to learn how to walk, however, if the ground beneath them keeps changing, it's adding an additional stressor to their development. That, in essence, is what's happening right now in the adolescent brain. The relationship between self and the world around them and how they fit into the world is very unsure. So right now, with the changing world, it's important to look at, recognize that the combination of these two things can result in stressors that look like depression, anxiety, withdrawal, even rebellion, and there's so many more things. I have so much compassion for teens and what they're going through. And what teens need right now are tools. Tools for survival and tools for development. I'm going to offer you 5 free things that you can do today to support your teens. But I am going to offer up this caveat first. There are 2 things that need to be in place in order for you to offer these tools to your teen. The first one is your teen has to have full buy-in. They have got to be intrinsically motivated to make change in their own life. And number 2, you as the parent, if you're going to help facilitate these tools, you have to do this in the spirit of partnership. And what that means is, as a facilitator, you have to separate your role in the moment as a parent. As a parent, we're very close to our children, right? We're close to our teens, and we've lived with them. We know them. We've been with them since birth. That also means we have our own ideas and thoughts about who they are. And we have to find the space as a parent to separate from those beliefs and go in and be neutral. So if we have the thought or the idea that our teen is depressed, or our teen never finishes anything, or our teen struggles with self-image or self-commitment, those thoughts that you're projecting on your teen won't work in partnership with them. You need to have the experience as a parent to separate those beliefs about your teen in order to facilitate these tools with them in a partnership. And it can be done, I promise you, it can be done, but it takes a lot of self-awareness and work from your perspective as the parent. So those 2 things are in place. Here's the tools. First tool is, after your teen has full buy-in, sit down with your teen and pull out a calendar application, either on their phone or on their laptop, and commit to marking out 1.5 hours of self-development time for that teen each day. Now, this is their time. This is a time that they've committed to spending to themselves. Now, the first 15 minutes is going to be spent first thing in the morning, and the second 15 minutes, which equals 30 minutes, is going to be spent before they go to sleep. So those 30 minutes in the day are scheduled. The other hour, they've got 23.5 other hours in the day that they can select each day that 1 hour is for them. They need to put those times on their calendar, and that is the commitment that they're making to themselves. So, number one, calendar schedule. So, how are we going to divide up these calendar times? Well, I've already told you about the first 15 minutes in the morning and the last 15 minutes before they go to sleep. Those are times that they are going to commit to journaling. And journaling is slightly different than a diary. When you were young, I don't know if you kept a diary, but I did when I was a child, and it always started with, "Dear diary, today I blah, blah, blah." And for me, those passages were very conscious, and they were about a recollection of what happened in the day. This is not what the 15 minutes of journaling in the morning is, and the 15 minutes of journaling at night is. This is a journal of feelings, and these feeling journals, I woke up feeling this, and whatever the stream of consciousness is for the first 15 minutes of the day is able to be reported. And at the end of the day, it's a way of processing the day through feelings and emotions. By putting the feelings and emotions into words and writing them down, it becomes a cathartic process, and it really gives the conscious and subconscious mind a connection and a practice to then being able to communicate with the self. And it's very important. And you, as the parent, need to support your child by assuring your child, your teen, that you will not invade their privacy and you will not read it, but you will provide whatever materials they need, and you will support them by getting them a notebook or a privacy box or whatever it is that they need to feel safe and secure in getting that communication out for themselves. So that's your job as the parent. Then we've got another 1 hour to schedule throughout the day, and talk to your teen about what is involved in that hour. So you're going to divide the next hour into 2 parts. So the 30 minutes can be divided at different times, or they can sit down and do the full hour with 2 parts back to back. That's entirely up to your teen. So one of the 30-minute portions that they're going to schedule for themselves are 30 minutes of passion. And this can include a time of being on the internet and researching. It could be a time of watching videos about the thing that they're passionate about. It could be a time for drawing or painting or writing or whatever it is that they are passionate about. The only caveat that I would add to this is, if your teen is passionate about video games, this is actually not a time to play video games, but if the passion is there for video games, it's a time for them to research maybe game theory or strategy for particular games or that sort of thing, but it's actually not a time to be playing. That would be scheduled however else they plan their day. But this is not the time for that. This is the time for building on the knowledge based on the passion, the particular passion or passions that they have. And if they have more than one passion, they can save 30 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They're researching game theory. On Tuesday and Thursday, they're researching horses or biology of the brain, if they happen to be interested in that, or whatever it is. But it's up to them to schedule out their time. The scheduling, in essence, is a commitment to self. And the act of putting it on a calendar then helps to cement that commitment to self. Okay, so we've talked about the 15 minutes of journaling in the morning, 15 minutes of journaling in the evening, the first 30 minutes of passion research, and the second 30 minutes that your teen is going to schedule for themselves is self-care. And there are many things that they can do surrounding self-care. This could be taking a 30-minute bath, if that works for your teen. It could be mindfulness and meditation. And I'm going to give you some links for mindfulness and meditation resources that you can start using today. You could take a walk in nature, or you could listen to music, whatever it is that your teen uses for self-care. And as a young child, we call it soothing. And now we call it, as we move into adolescence, self-care. This is a conscious time where they are giving to themselves. There is no judgment as to what that looks like. It's up to the teen to decide what that looks like for them. And again, like they do with their passions and interests, those 30 minutes, it could look different. It could look like, again, Saturday and Sunday, they're doing guided meditations. Monday and Tuesday, they're doing mindfulness exercises. Wednesday and Thursday, they're doing exercising and stretching and being in the body, or yoga. And maybe the last day is a walk in nature, or, making time to chat with friends and reach out. Or maybe it looks like journaling even further, but that's up to them to define what that last 30-minute commitment to self looks like. And so finally, if your teen is struggling with fear or stress or withdrawal, and there are anxiety issues surrounding that, I'm going to suggest that your teen creates a trigger log. And I'm going to pop a link in here so you can download one. What this looks like is a sheet that your teen keeps by their bed, and it has a date, time, trigger, which is the description of the event, and then the emotion. And the more that your teen has practice putting emotions and separating from being in reaction mode, it gives them space to examine and then make other choices. Now, if this is something that you're familiar with and have used before, it will be an easy thing to keep by the bed, especially now when they're not big stressors. But if you find that you have a need for this and you've never heard of a trigger log before, I'm going to suggest that you get some support. If your teen is struggling and there are self-sabotaging or anxiety issues, I'm truly going to suggest that you seek out counseling. There is absolutely no shame involved in getting support. Finally, I'm also going to leave a link of my mentoring program, which is a 12-week mentoring program where I actually walk through all of these different activities, resources, projects with your team and partner with them through a connection that is intentional, supportive, loving, and caring. So if you're interested in learning more about how I can support your team, which is different than counseling and psychological help, this is mentoring and coaching, please do drop me a message and or leave a comment in this thread, and I will drop the link to my website in this thread. If there is anything else that I can do to support you, to help you support your team, please feel free to send me a personal message and let me know. It's my pleasure to be there for you. Thank you.